And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
The first line weather graphic for Tuesday morning shows a lot of IFR here, northern Bering Sea right up to the southwest coast and also along the Alaska Peninsula. Another fairly large area up here from the western Brooks Range covering most of the North Slope and all of the Arctic coast. Marginal VFR down into the central interior. IFR here starting out over southern Alaska into the northern panhandle with marginal VFR with still some moisture there, and showers have yet to slide out of the southern southeast coast. That extends back into the Gulf of Alaska. Conditions coming down late tonight into early tomorrow for Kodiak Island. We'll see that as that front pushes eastward and starts to push northward, lower conditions coming in, especially for the western Alaska range, becoming IFR later in the day. And IFR pushing up toward the North Gulf Coast there, almost to Resurrection Bay. Staying VFR there, eastern Alaska range, and most of the Copper River Basin, central interior, and then toward the Brooks Range, coming down to marginal VFR with IFR for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, VFR for the southeast coast, and improving here, or not too bad, marginal VFR for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. And then for the day on Wednesday morning, we've got marginal VFR, most of the Bering Sea into the southwest coast here, and the next system spreading IFR into the western Aleutians there in the far western Bering Sea. IFR Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast, south of the mountains though, a pretty good swath of VFR there. And then another band of marginal VFR right along the Yukon River out into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. And IFR, Susitna, Manuska Valley, northern Cook Inlet to Resurrection Bay and all of the North Gulf Coast, including Prince William Sound. And marginal VFR into the northern panhandle with VFR to the south. And Kodiak Island, some VFR. And for the afternoon, looks like for at least the state airport there, it'll be a VFR day for Kodiak right on up into the western Cook Inlet area into the western Susitna Valley. Narrow band of VFR as conditions slowly improve. Still some lingering IFR for the North Gulf Coast. Marginal for the Panhandle. Marginal VFR for much of the interior. And then IFR there for the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast again. And IFR sliding eastward to Adak Island and advancing northeastward here, but not quite making it to St. Lawrence Island. And for the passes, for Anatuvik, marginal VFR, lower conditions north, and possible IFR also on the north side of Adigan, otherwise marginal for tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, look for a pretty rapid deterioration of conditions with lowering ceilings and visibility. Starting out pretty good VFR, but look for it to trend down toward IFR throughout the afternoon hours, especially toward evening. Windy, same forecast. Rainy, the same forecast, getting ahead of myself here. For windy VFR, but look for lowering conditions on the southern entrance, possibly becoming marginal VFR later in the afternoon. Isabel, though, probably staying VFR, even though the clouds will be thickening and lowering. It should stay VFR through the day and afternoon. Mentesta, VFR also. Tanita, VFR trending toward marginal VFR in the afternoon toward evening. And for Portage, same trend, probably a little sooner than, sooner than Tanita. For Portage, VFR becoming marginal. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels about 2,000 to 4,000 feet, 2,000 feet here over the northern interior out to the Bering Strait, 4,000 feet all the way down to the North Gulf Coast. And then this next storm coming in, pulling warmer air northward, 12,000 feet for the Alaska Peninsula, 4,000 to 6,000 feet over the Panhandle, and then cooler air coming in back behind that system with 4,000 feet getting pulled southward to the central Aleutians. And for icing, with the storm coming in, a lot of moisture here, especially along the frontal boundary, roughly somewhere in here. Anyway, look for considerable moderate rime icing, North Gulf Coast, eastern Kenai Peninsula, and another area here from the western Alaska Range across the Kuskokwim Valley, right on out to the Delta there in the southwest coast. And then from there, taking a look at the jet stream, we'll see a very strong 150 knot westerly jet here coming across the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and then respectable northwest jet at 120 knots there, right out over the panhandle. Lighter winds on the north side of the jet, and winds diminishing here out to the west, 85 to 100 knots over the central Aleutians. And at 9,000 feet, low pressure right about in this position here, very strong westerly winds, 75 knots right across the Alaska Peninsula, and 70 knots there southwest of Kodiak Island, otherwise southwest 40 knots over the western Alaska Range, northwest 45 toward the Pribilof Islands. And for 3,000 feet, northwest winds 35 knots there, Prince of Wales Island southward, probably more likely over Dixon Entrance, lighter winds to the north. Eastern northern interior, pretty light winds. And then, of course, the strong winds with this rather snappy low center pulling up to the southwest coast. Westerlies at 75 knots there, south of Nunivak Island and the southeast Bering Sea, with lighter 35 knot easterlies up towards St. Lawrence Island. And turbulence-wise, quite an area of considerable moderate turbulence here, maybe even isolated severe for smaller aircraft in this shaded area here, covering the southwest part of the state, the Alaska Peninsula, all the way out to about Atka Island. Otherwise, to the north and to the east, and also to the west, nothing of any significance.